Hey guys, Matt Bell with Electric Violin Shop. Usually I'm in front of this big wall full of electric violins, but today we're sitting in our amp haven where we've got a bunch of amplifiers in here. This is where we come to test different amps because that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about amplifiers. If you're going to play an electric violin, you got to plug it into something, otherwise nobody's going to be able to hear it. So people call us all the time and ask, what's the best amplifier for an electric violin? The answer is, it depends. It depends on what you want to do. So we ask a ton of questions to try to help you figure out what the best amplifier is for you. And I thought in this video maybe we could talk about some of those features so that you would know what our decision-making process is. So if you're looking for an amp, you can kind of work through those same decision-making matrices. So the first factor we always ask is price. Budgets are important. You got to know how much you're willing to spend. If you're looking to buy a whole rig, a violin rig, we want to make sure that we're leaving some room to buy a nice instrument and to buy a nice amp. You don't want to buy a $3,000 instrument and then cheap out on a $50 amp, because the amp is what people are going to hear. And your sound is only as good as the weakest link in your chain. So you don't want, you're sort of wasted a lot of money if you bought a really nice instrument and plug it into a cheap amp. Think about it like when you're buying your acoustic violin. How important is the bow? Right? I don't want to go buy a $10,000 violin and then play it with a $50 bow. That's no good. So I want to make sure I leave enough room for the amp, because you do in fact get what you pay for. That's definitely the case on electronics. That's just how it is. You get what you pay for. So the next issue besides price is size. How many people are we going to be playing for? How loud does this thing have to get? Is it a bedroom amp about just practicing in my room? Maybe this little Yamaha is going to be the right thing for you. If you're going to be playing on a loud rock stage, maybe something with 600 watts like this thing is going to be the right thing for you. If you're playing sort of medium-sized venues, maybe something like the Bose. So watts matter, although I'll say that not all watts are created equal. Okay, this Boss Katana 50, there's also a Boss Katana 100. That does give us a comparison because those are similar circuits. The 100 is going to be about 20 to 30% louder than the 50. Yeah, it's not twice as loud. That's the way power works. So a 100 is going to be about 20 or 30% louder than a 50. So inside the same amp class, those watts will give you an idea of how much louder that amp is going to be. So like the Yamaha, there's a 5 watt and a 10 watt. Well, the 10 watt's going to be about 20 or 30% louder. The other thing is weight. How much does this amp weigh? You're going to have to carry this thing. If you live in New York City and you're going to be hand carrying stuff, well, then the weight matters a lot. If, like me, you live in a place where you drive pretty much everywhere you're going to play, maybe the weight's a little less important, because I don't have to cart this thing that far when I get to a venue, and I can always put it on a hand truck or something. All the manufacturers are trying to get lighter and lighter as we're going, but there are some old amps that are really heavy and they sound really good. So weight is an important factor, but it sort of depends on where you live, whether that's that important or not. The number of inputs, like the Boss Katana series has one input. You can plug one instrument into that and that's it. That's all you get. The Acous amps have 3 instrument inputs. That's pretty unusual, but if you're playing in a trio and you want to be able to use one amplifier, it's a really nice choice. When we're looking at number of inputs, how many instruments can you plug into this thing? Do I need an aux in for running tracks? Does it have a microphone input? Like the Fishman Loudbox has 1 instrument and 1 mic input. So if you want to play your violin, maybe do some looping, and you want to sing, that's really nice. You've got everything in one unit, and it can run Bluetooth tracks from your computer or your mobile device. Okay, so number of inputs is important. Does it have sends and returns? Some of these amps have effect sends and returns. Some of them don't. If you're using the amp as your preamp, so you're plugging your instrument directly into the amp and you like the preamp sound that's in that amplifier, then having all of your effects in a effects loop might be really handy for you. If you've got a preamp on your pedal board, you don't need the one on the amp, then maybe you don't need an effects send and return. You just plug in series from your instrument, pedal board, amp. But it's nice to know if you want to use an effects loop, to know, does my amp have one? I can plug directly in the amplifier, and then I send from the amp to my effects, come back from my effects to the back of the amp, and then out to the world. The other thing is number of outputs. Does the amp have a direct out? If I'm going to use this as a monitor on stage so I can hear myself, is there a direct output that I can send to the sound guy? The Fishman Loudbox Artist, it actually has two separate outputs. You've got two inputs and two outputs. So if I'm sharing that amplifier, say I'm playing violin, I've got a friend who's playing viola, we both are using that amplifier. We can each send a line to front of house, and the front of house engineer can mix us separately. That's kind of a nice feature. Do I need effects to be in my amp? Most of these amps have at least reverb built right in. If I need something more than reverb, the Boss amps have a bunch of different effects in them. The Yamaha amps have a bunch of different effects in them. The Roland has some effects in it. It even has a built-in looper, believe it or not. Super, super cool. You'll need an external foot pedal to be able to use that, but it's there. So do I need effects? Do I need battery power? And when I say need, I mean need. Okay, it's not one of those things, yeah, I might occasionally. Batteries cost money and they cost weight. So if you think, well, I might once in a blue moon need battery power, maybe it's not worth paying for that. The Bose has battery. The Fishman Mini Charge can run on batteries. The Roland can run on batteries. So these have built-in batteries that are rechargeable. The Yamaha and the Roland, they use like AA's, that you can put AA's or D cells or C cells or whatever. You can put them in there and run off of that. So the nice thing about those, you don't have to carry around the weight of those batteries if you're not using them, where these two have rechargeable batteries. So it's a good thing to think about. Do I need battery power? Do I not need battery power? In general, on amplifiers, it's really important to know what the input impedance of that amplifier is. Electric violins tend to run between 1 and 5 mega ohms of impedance, especially if they're passive instruments. You want to make sure that the amp can handle those super high impedance levels, because most electric guitars are going to be way like a tenth of that. So what impedance is basically the electrical resistance of a signal. The signal that your violin sends, there's a lot of impedance in it, meaning that it can't fight its way through a circuit, okay? So if the amp is not expecting that really high impedance signal, then not all of your signal is going to get through, and it's going to sound really weak and kind of not good, okay? So we got to make sure that the amp can handle a high impedance input, and not high impedance like 300 kiloohms, high impedance like 1 to 5 mega ohms. And then the other thing is voicing. Again, most of these amps are set up for guitars, and guitars are voiced at least an octave lower than violins. If the amp is designed to make a guitar sound brighter, then when you plug a bright violin into a bright amp, that can be bad, right? So we want to make sure that the amp is voiced in a way that's going to be pleasing for violinists. All of the amps that are here, we really like. That's why they're in our shop. If you've got some amps that you're looking into that are not amps that we carry, then you definitely want to check impedance and voicing to make sure that they're going to be a good match for your violin. Those are the questions that we ask when we're trying to help somebody find the right amp for themselves. And hopefully, if you've got all those things figured out, you can find the right amp for you. As always, if you have any questions, you can call us here at the Electric Violin Shop. You can find us on our website, electricviolinshop.com. We're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're here for you.